This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, I welcome you all into this Dell Boomi session. In this session, we are going to talk about some of the hands-on related things uh, in Boomi, right? So I think some of you must have already got the access to the platform. Uh, if you haven't got the access to the platform, you can just ping me on WhatsApp, and this should be done for you. I have already configured for some of you, but I think details are still pending with me. I'm yet to share those. So after this session, you can just ping me on my WhatsApp number and I can share those details with you. Okay, so we'll quickly get started. I think you know how to basically open the platform, right? So can anybody tell me how do you open the platform?
Platform.boomi.com.
Yeah, we go to platform.boomi.com and that's how we get started with the platform. So now once you're into platform, right, what are the different services Boomi offers?
Integration,
Data management hub.
deploy,
Yeah. Yes, we have
API
got API
management.
management. Very nice. Now when we get into the integration, we have different tabs, right? What are those? Within integration, what are the different options we have?
Build, deploy, and manage.
Build, deploy, and manage,
Build, deploy, manage.
right? So that means using Boomi as a platform, right? We can do three things. We can build integrations, we can deploy integrations, and we can manage integrations. And when we build the integrations, that integration is nothing but composition of different components, right? Which is the core component we have in Boomi?
Process.
Very nice. Process is the core
Process.
component in Boomi. So whenever we start with any integration, guys, there is someone who is not on mute, and this is really annoying for me. I have told multiple times. I want people to be on mute. Process is the core component in Boomi, right? Whatever development we do, we have to make sure that we must have the process component. So, uh, how do we go about it? We go here, right? What is this section called as? What is this pane called as? The left pane?
Content Explorer.
Content Explorer.
It is called as Component Explorer, right? So you can explore all your components from here, right? We showed you how to create a folder over here, right? So we created a folder here. Now we can create some subfolders also. We can create some subfolders also. And within that, we can start creating our processes also, right? So let's say we started with the process with the name employee sync workday. What is workday?
It's a cloud-based HRMS platform.
Very nice. It is a cloud-based HRMS platform, HRMS and financial platform. And yeah, it's a SaaS application where like very much like Salesforce, but Salesforce is a CRM. This is used for HRMS and your financial management. Okay, so now we started with this. What is this section called as? Where we see these dots inside process.
Canvas.
This is called as canvas, right? We also call it as a process canvas. So you can do anything related to the process over here. Just give me a minute. Okay, so now whenever we start with the start shape, right? So what happens is whenever we start with a process, right? So process is a component. So there are two things which you will hear when you're working in Boomi. One is component and another is shapes. Okay, so there are two things which you will hear about in Boomi. One is component and other is shape. What are components?
They
Any
are
idea, guys?
reusable entities.
So these are reusable.
Reusable.
entities which can be used across integrations, right? So if you develop, let's say, multiple integrations, and there a single component can be used at multiple places, right? And some of the examples of the components are, as you rightly mentioned earlier, process is one example, profile, which you don't know right now about, but just to let you know. Then there is map, then there is certificate. So there are so many components which we have in Boomi, but the core one is process. Then there is another thing called shapes, right? So shapes are the actions you can perform on the data which is flowing through these integrations. So what are shapes? Shapes are the actions that you can perform on the data which is flowing through these integrations. What does that mean? So now let's say there is Salesforce. Okay, what is Salesforce? Salesforce is a CRM, right? So what will be there in the CRM? The customer relationship management data, or whatever data we need to maintain the relationship with the customer, such as the data about the customer, their phone number, their email address, their shipping address, their billing address, what kind of orders they are placing, right? So all those information will be there in the CRM. Now, if this needs to be integrated, or this information needs to be passed on to the ERP. What does ERP stand for? Enterprise Resource Planning,
resource planning.
right? This is the core of any enterprise, as I told you, right? This is the core of any enterprise, where they will maintain information about the inventory, information about the purchases, information about the invoices, right? So this is the single place where they will have the all the very, very important data related to the organization. Now what we want is, whenever I create a customer over here, the same customer must be visible to me in the ERP also. Are you understanding? I mean, because let's say, guys, why do we need to unmute ourselves again and again? I really don't understand. Fiza, can you put yourself on mute? Okay, so what I'm saying is, now let's say there is a CRM, right? Now a customer is created over here, and like that there can be multiple applications within an enterprise. If the customer is created over here, we would want to see the same customer over here as well, right? How is that going to happen? One way is, I will take the data of the customer and I'll manually create the customer over here, right? If you will do that, there are chances that you might end up messing up with the spelling of the customer. So for example, here my customer is, let's say, Infosys Limited. Yeah, and it might happen when I manually go and create the customer here, I might write Infosys Limited like this. Now, both might be correct, but then there is a difference, right, in the representation. Or sometimes it might happen, I might make a small spelling mistake like this. So because of which there is a data discrepancy. So what organizations would suggest is, they will identify a system which is also called as a source of truth. Source of truth means any data which is coming in that specific system is the correct data for me, right? Okay, any information coming from that application is like the correct information from me, and whatever information is residing in that system, we will take that as is and we will pass it on to the ERP. So what will Dell Boomi do is, Dell Boomi will have two touch points. How many touch points? Why two touch points? So this kind of terminology you will hear very frequently when you start working in integration. You go and work for any company, they will say this integration has two touch points. Two touch points means two different end systems with which we need to talk, right? So how many touch points? Two touch points. Then you have to understand what is the nature of integration. Again, nature of integration, as I was telling last time also, you can decide in two ways, right? Whether the application, where I mean whether it will be on-prem, cloud, or a hybrid integration. What is on-prem integration? When the source and the target system both are behind a corporate firewall, right? What is cloud? When the source and target both are
On the
on the
cloud.
cloud, right? when both of them are on cloud. And what is hybrid? Hybrid means when one of the
When
application
one
is
is on the
on-prem and other is on the cloud, right? That is called as a hybrid integrations. So now you understand that this is a CRM, right, which is on cloud. That's how you have to classify your integration. Then this one, this may be on-prem, this may be on cloud. Let's say this is on-prem. So which kind of integration is this? This is a
Hybrid.
hybrid.
hybrid integration, right? Next thing is you have to understand whether this is synchronous integration, these all are very, very important terminologies, and you will hear them very frequently when you start working in real time. So then the next thing you might need to think is whether these integrations are synchronous, asynchronous, one way. So first of all, let's understand what is synchronous. So I would say an operation is said to be synchronous when there is a response corresponding to the request. The response and request both traverses via same channel. Okay, so synchronous means when you fire a request, you immediately get a response back, and the response is mandatory, right? In this case, the getting the response is mandatory. You don't have that choice. So I'll give you an example, right? Okay, I'll give you two examples. One is, let's say you go and let's say purchase an order or purchase a commodity from some e-commerce site, right? So the moment you will say pay, you want to make an online payment, you hit the button pay, you immediately get some kind of an invoice or an acknowledgement, right? Or your order is successful, you immediately get your order number, right? Let's think of a scenario where you make the payment and you don't get any information back. So you will get impatient, right? That my money got deducted from my account, but from the company where I have purchased the products, I didn't get any kind of acknowledgement. I didn't get any kind of reference number which I can use for future, right? So this kind of scenario is a synchronous scenario. Or in layman word, it's like I slap someone and that person slaps me back immediately. Okay, that is synchronous. There is a action and there is an immediate reaction. There is a request and there is an immediate response. Having response is mandatory, and when I write this word, these traverses via same channel. In technical word, it means these traverses by a same connection. So you don't have a choice. I mean, both have to happen at the same time in the same connection. So the connection which was used to send the request, the same connection is used to bring back the response. There is a single connection in case of synchronous. So you have to understand whether this integration which I'm developing is going to be synchronous or not. Synchronous means something comes from the CRM, it goes to the ERP, and I have to immediately return back something from ERP to Boomi to CRM. That is synchronous. If something comes from CRM and it sits in the ERP, right, then that is not synchronous. So synchronous would mean that if you fire something and you immediately get a response, right, that is synchronous. So for example, if I give you a call and you lift that call and we immediately start con- doing some conversation, right? That is synchronous because we established a connection. See, I give you a call, which means we established a connection. I might be sitting at a place X, you might be sitting at a place Y, and we need to talk to each other. I give you a call on your cell phone. We start talking to each other. I am asking you, how are you? You are responding, I'm good. What are you doing? I am taking booming session. So this whole conversation is happening over a channel, right? Even now, when we are talking, if I ask you, what are touch points, you can say these are the endpoints with which we do integration. So in this kind of use case, how many touch points are there? You are saying there are two touch points. So I'm asking you a question, you are responding immediately, right? So for every question I ask, there is a response. That is synchronous. And understand this thing, the client will always wait for the response. Who is, what do you mean by client? Okay, client here does not mean customer. Client means the entity who initiates the request. What do we mean by client? Client means the entity who initiates the request. How many of you are aware about the client server architecture? I think you guys must have heard of this client server architecture. Directly or indirectly, every day we are using this architecture. So when you go on your phones, your browsers, right, and you try to basically go to the facebook.com or maybe let's say any other website for that matter, right? These days people are using more apps than the websites or the web portals, but you just think of a scenario, you go to go to your browser and you type www.facebook.com, right? So that is definitely a client server architecture, right? Who is client in that case? When you go to the internet, you write www.facebook.com and you hit enter, right? The Facebook page gets open. So in this whole process, who is client?
We are the client who is
We
searching www.facebook.
Actually, you are not the client. The client is your web browser.
Okay. Okay.
So, like in client server, it's like that. No, that from Facebook when we get generated data. So from where the thing which is providing the data is a server and which is receiving. So sometimes we upload the file. So we become the server and then other end becomes the client. This kind of architecture.
Yeah, so in this case, client is nothing but your browser, who is you are a user. Guys, whenever you answer after that, go on mute. There's a lot of background noise coming in, and this kind of really annoys me because we have a lot of people. So it becomes Fiza, there is a lot of background noise coming constantly from your side. Okay, so now client is the browser, server is a place where your application is deployed and running, right? Where it is hosted, right? So Facebook must have a lot of data centers where they have their actual the core application running, right? So you send a request. So there might be some I don't know how many of you know load balancer, but if you do not know, try to know. Okay, so there might be some things which I deliberately write on my notepad. You may not know about it, which is fine. We will come as we move forward, but whenever you have time, try to explore about these and just don't give me any definition load balancer is xyz. Try to understand the meaning, right? In true sense, we hear these definitions will not help us. It's good to know those definitions. These are these are definitely important, but at the same time you should also understand that why do I need a load balancer, how is it used in real time, what are the different types of load balancers we have. You should have some examples of load balancers in your mind, right? So load balancer is I'll come to that, but right now let me stick to this client server architecture. So this client server architecture, what I was telling is there across everywhere, even in our real time. If you see, you go to a shop, right? You go to a medicine shop and you want to take a medicine, you want to purchase a medicine. So you are a client over there, right? You will show some prescription. That person who is basically there to receive the request will see that, will go and search the medicine and will return back it to you, right? So there also we have this client server architecture, right? So now you think of an example. When you go to the medicine shop and you purchase a medicine, will you keep on waiting for the response, or you will just give your prescription and go away? You will wait for the response, right? You will wait for that medicine. So
Yes.
what kind of communication or what kind of interaction is that? That is a synchronous interaction, isn't it? Because you sent a request and you're waiting for the response. Now let's understand what is asynchronous interaction. The asynchronous interaction or operation, whatever we call it as, right? Because these all are important design patterns. Whenever you are developing any integration, that will be either synchronous, asynchronous, or one way. So before you design it, right, you know what are my touch points, you know whether it is synchronous, asynchronous, or one way. These are important things to know, because anybody can go and start doing the Dell Boomi drag and drop. That is fine, but if you don't know what I'm doing, whether I'm doing synchronous, first of all, if you don't know what is synchronous, asynchronous, then your existence in integration will be limited to certain part only. But if you want to grow as an expert, you have to know all these things. Now let's move on. Okay, let's talk about asynchronous. Okay, now first I'll start with a real lifetime example. Let's say I drop you an email that this is the assignment on Boomi which should be done by tomorrow. Do I wait for the response or can I continue with my other task?
You can continue with other tasks.
Right? If I drop you a note that boss, this is a assignment on Boomi where you have to develop an integration again between Salesforce and ERP. Let's say you have to do an integration of the order data, then that kind of integration will be considered as synchronous if I am expecting an immediate response for the request instantiated. If let's say I don't expect a response, or else I expect a response but I expect a delayed response, right? Then that falls under asynchronous interaction. So now the example which I'm giving you, let's say I drop you an email where I say you this is the assignment which needs to be done, right? And maybe I assign you some kind of timelines or I don't give you timelines. Do I expect some response for that? Do I? So if I dropped you a note to do some assignment, do I expect some response or I don't expect any response?
Will expect some responsibility.
I will definitely expect some response, right? But do I expect the response immediately?
No, it
No,
depends upon.
absolutely. It depends on how much time it is required for the person who received that assignment to complete that assignment. Yes. Okay. So now you tell me, if I take this same definition of synchronous, what all points should be changed or tweaked? So to make this as a definition of asynchronous, what all things should be changed? An
The
operation is said to be asynchronous when there is a response, or I will say where there is a delayed
delay
response. Yes, corresponding
and
to the request. The request and response, do they traverse via same channel?
no.
No, there is some.
What do you mean by channel? Connection. So let's understand this. I sent an email, I established one connection. Now who will do the response or who will generate the response?
The one who received the mail.
Absolutely correct. The one who received the email will generate the response. So these traverses via different channel, right? What are, so there will be always two channels. What do you mean by channels? Two different connections. So first connection is used to send the request, right? And other connection is used to, actually the terminology which we use is used to do a callback, or you can say it is used for sending the response. Okay, but when we are talking about asynchronous, we do not use the terminology as response. We use the terminology called as callback. Okay, I'll give you another example. I give you a call and let's say you didn't pick up the call. So what do you do me? What do you do after that? Let's say you were in a meeting, your meeting got finished. Now I gave you a call. Okay, you understood that there was a call. Now what do you do? I mean, if that person, you don't want to talk to that person, you might not do anything. But if you want to talk to that person, what do you do, guys?
We'll call you.
You do a call back, right? Isn't it? So what kind of interaction is that? That is asynchronous interaction. You have to understand few notes over here. Client does not wait for the response, right? Response or callback is initiated by the service provider. When I say service provider, means you can think of the recipient, right? Like somebody, I think one of you answered that the recipient will do a callback, which is absolutely correct. And I hope this, is there any doubt around synchronous, asynchronous? If somebody asks you what is synchronous, what is asynchronous, do you understand it?
Yes, Sumit. Now
All
it's
right.
clear.
Yeah, very nice. So let me write it over here. This is mandatory. Okay, there is third nature of integration, that is one-way integration. Now, I think since you understand synchronous, asynchronous, what do you think, guys? What will be one-way integration, which is also called as fire and forget?
When you send the request, but you don't have to wait for the response, that callback. That is,
Absolutely. I mean, you just fire, you never expect a response. You even do not have any mechanism to get the response. You just fire and forget, right? So, for example, you let's say write the data into a file. When you write the data into a file, do you get something back from the file? No, right? Isn't it? So when you just do an action for which you do not expect any kind of response, that is called as fire and forget. There will never be any response for in these kind of interactions. So okay, whenever there is no response, okay, just excuse me for the spelling mistakes which I make while writing. Okay, these all are typo. So whenever there is no response for the request instantiated, then that is called as fire and forget, right? So whenever you are doing your integrations, any of the integrations you develop will fall either under synchronous, asynchronous, or one way. Now, if I tell you that let's take the data from the CRM and just push it to ERP, that's all. What kind of integration is that?
asynchronous. Sorry, one-way integration.
One way.
I'm saying, I'll repeat, you take the data from the CRM and you just push it onto ERP. What kind of integration is that?
One-way integration
One
because we
way
just
integration.
putting the data.
Absolutely. It is one-way integration because we are just pulling the data and we are just pushing it onto the ERP, right? And you have to be very confident about your answer. And the only way you can be confident is when you know the rationale, when you know the reason why this answer is correct, right? Because if you will guess, if an interviewer goes and asks you the same question two times, maybe your answer will change. But if your fundamentals are very clear, you can always go and even debate with the interviewer. My answer is correct because of this XYZ reason. I mean, when I say debate, it has to be in a very, very, polite manner. It does not mean that you just start dominating the interviewer, so that at least even sometimes you are wrong, at least interviewer understands that you have a reason behind your answer. You are not guessing the answer, right? People will even appreciate that you have some fundamentals, right? You may not be applying the right fundamentals at the right place, but at least you have some fundamentals. Now let me ask you this: if the requirement is take the data from orders data, take the orders data from the CRM, push it into the ERP. ERP will generate one order number. That order number you need to return to the Salesforce.
Synchronous.
What I will repeat, one, there are some orders which are here, that you will pick one order from here. You will use Dell Boomi for doing the integration. You will pass that data to the ERP. ERP will generate one order number. Okay, ERP will generate one order number. That order number you want to return back to the Salesforce, and this all should happen in a single transaction. What is meaning of transaction? This whole process should be part of the single
Synchronous.
flow. Then what
Synchronous.
nature of
Synchronous.
this? Very nice. This is going to be a synchronous integration. Now the third scenario, I say that you have to push the orders data from Salesforce to ERP. ERP will generate all the order numbers once in the night. So there are some things which happens. There are some nightly jobs. When you work in the industry, there are a lot of nightly jobs which runs. So what I'm saying is ERP do not want to generate the order numbers every now and then. How the ERP works is it will definitely generate some kind of order number, but that those all order numbers will be generated once, maybe in the night time, and those order number details will be returned to the Salesforce. In that case, what type of integration will that be?
Asynchronous.
Synchronous.
Synchronous.
In
Asynchronous.
that case, it will be asynchronous because Salesforce CRM is not going to wait for 24 hours, right? It will just submit the request and it will release its resources, right? Because see, we have the limited resources. When I say resources means for in application, what will be a resource? Your memory will be one resource, right? Your processing capability is another resource. You cannot hold your resources indefinitely, right? You have to release your resources so that you can do some task. You can do some other actions, right? So in that case where we are expecting all the order numbers to be returned maybe in some nightly job, then in that case this kind of integration becomes an asynchronous integration. Anyone who I'll tell you, there are people having 7 years experience, 8 years experience in the IT. If you ask them what is the difference between synchronous, asynchronous, one way, I can guarantee you out of 10 only two people will be able to explain properly. They will know. It's not that they do not know, but what is the meaning of different channels? Client does not, so they will give you some incomplete definitions, right? So it is very, very important to know these things. Anyone who does not understand the difference among synchronous, asynchronous, and one way?
It's clear, Sumit.
Guys, make sure you are understanding. I know there are many freshers in this batch, right? And I have a tendency to speak a little faster, and that's why today I'm speaking a little slower because I got a feedback in my previous trainees that I speak a little faster. So I just want to make sure that each and every one of you is following me. Yeah, so please feel free to interrupt and ask me to. I mean, don't say me start explain me from start, right? Even if you're not following something at the end of the topic, you can stop me there itself, and I can repeat it. All right. Coming back to the point, so we know how to distinguish among synchronous, asynchronous, one way. Now there is another important thing, right? Again, the nature of integration is also decided on the fact when the integration gets triggered or kicked off, right? Nature of integration is also decided on the fact when the integration gets kicked off. This is also very, very important. So there are three types of integrations here: real-time integrations, near real-time integrations, batch-based integrations. So when you go to the interview, right, people will ask you, majorly which type of integrations have you worked on, right? So this question is very, very open-ended means there can be so many different answers of this question, right? So if he's asking in the perspective that when this integration gets triggered or gets kicked off, then there can be three possible types: real time, near real time, batch based. If he's asking on the basis of interactions, then there are three possibilities: synchronous, asynchronous, one way. If the interviewer is asking on the fact where your applications are hosted, then again there can be three answers: on-prem, hybrid, cloud, right? So real time, near real time, batch based integrations. Anyone has any idea what is the meaning of real time integration?
Sir, I know what is real time, like what does real time actually means. Like at the time, exact time, like when we are communicating, we get the response at that particular time. Like when we
Okay,
submit some applications and then we get the immediate response. Like
very
live
nice,
YouTube channels.
very nice, very nice. So you see a live match, right? You see a live match on, let's say, I don't know on which channel they are telecasting IPL. I hardly watch it, but maybe let's assume that is on starsports.com. Okay, when I was, I mean, a child, I used to see on this. I don't know which channel we get the matches right now on. So she gave a very very nice example. We see the live match or a live Facebook. These days we can do live Facebook conversations, right? Uh, so those all are real time stuff. Near real time stuff is, I remember sometimes there used to be match, or else you go to this one Hotstar, right? And you do not have some paid subscription, then you will get to see the match, but then there will be some delay. Is that correct? There'll be some delay. You will see your actual score is running behind by 2 minutes or 3 minutes sometimes. I'm not sure how many of you have observed it, but if you do not have
Yeah,
the paid, yeah, you will see, you can see the score, you can see the live streaming, but your streaming will be delayed by 2 3 minutes, right? Let's say, so that is a near real time, right? And batch based means, I will not give the example of uh I'll not give the example of batch based integration. I don't know how I will fit in the match example, but I'll give you another example. And why I keep on giving these kind of real time examples is so that these concepts stick to your mind, right? If I'll give you a bookish definition, you may remember for few days and you'll forget it. But if you will have something from your real time, maybe you can remember it for longer, right? So we all make some online payments. Oh yeah, every now and then maybe we send some money to our home, or we get money from home, depending on the fact whether we are doing job or we are searching for a job, right? So now, if your parents are sending you money, okay, and I'm talking all about India. I don't know how things work in US, because these things change from geography to geography, right? Some of the statements which I'm making over here may not be 100% true for people in UK, US, or any other place, right? But I believe we do not have anyone who was not familiar with the Indian culture, right? Or how these transactions work in India. So I think we should be good. So now let me ask you this: if your parents are sending you money, right, and let's say they are very much advanced, they know how to run the online banking and all, what are the different options they have? Let's say your account is in ICICI Bank. Okay, we'll take an example of Fiza. Fiza's account is in ICICI Bank, and maybe her relative or her father wants to send her some money, right? Let's say her father wants to send money, and he also has an account in any bank, let's say SBI, Standard Bank of, what is the State Bank of India, not Standard, I'm so sorry, State Bank of India, right? Now he wants to send money, he wants to do online banking. What are the options Fiza's father would have?
UPIs. Currently UPIs are there
Oh, goodness. I
for
didn't
trans.
even I didn't even think of UPI. You were right. We have got the UPI. Okay. I mean, I hardly use it, so I am not aware. But what does UPI do? Does it take some time for the transactions to finish off, or it happens immediately?
Immediately, or you could say 1 minute.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes.
It means the moment you are initiating the request, you get the money, right? Or
Yeah,
else,
right.
right, the moment you initiate the request, you're getting the money in the recipient's account, right? Isn't it? Or else, if you feel that, let's say, there is a delay of 2 3 minutes, right, then
But
either it
sometimes
is
we,
real time or near real time. Is that correct or not?
yeah, yeah,
It
it's
is
correct.
either real time or near real time. Now let me talk about IMPS. Okay, I'm still a IMPS guy. Okay, I don't know what is my UPI also. Okay, I'm still a IMPS guy. In case of IMPS, what happens? In case of IMPS, what is going to happen is, you make the payment will go immediately. If let's say you by mistake entered a wrong account number, right, the payment will be rolled back immediately. It will be rolled back immediately. Or something is wrong with the server, it will be automatically immediately rolled back. If let's say maybe the recipient bank server is down because of some reason, okay, there is a network glitch, immediately the payment will be rolled back. Okay, so the point I'm trying to say is, real time means when the live data, when the data which is generated, the data which took birth, is immediately transferred to the other application. So which means if let's say there is an order which was created in Salesforce, and the moment that order is created, the same order is passed to the ERP at the very same moment. When I say live data means order took birth in CRM, and that order data is immediately being sent to the ERP at the very same moment, right? It is an example of real-time integration. The moment the data is produced, at the very same moment, the data is being passed to the ERP, right? It might have some delays of, let's say, some microseconds or some milliseconds, in some cases, some seconds also, right? Because we have to travel this whole path, right? We have to travel this whole path, right? So that might induce some delay, which is of very very less time, right? But I am generating the request at the very same moment, right? So let's say there are 100 orders. So if there are 100 orders, it might happen I may have 100 orders flowing like this. This is my order number 1, and this can happen in parallel. Order number 2, okay, order number 3, like this. Yes or no? So this is real time integration. Now, what is the example of near real time? Okay, I have some other examples also from my personal experience, right? Some of you may be able to correlate, some of you may not be able to correlate, right? So let's say you are married and your wife is pregnant, right? And your baby is about to get delivered, right? The moment the baby gets delivered, okay, I'm talking about, remove some hypothetical scenarios because our concept is to understand these, and these concepts should stick to mind, right? We are not here to argue about these examples. So the moment the baby is born, considering the fact the mother has a normal delivery and she is in all her conscious, who will be the first person who would know that the baby is delivered?
Mother.
Mother, father. Okay, some lady told mother, okay, maybe she already has a baby, so she can tell me the right answer. And I am telling from my experience, okay, I might be wrong also because I was not there when my wife was delivering my baby or our baby. So mother would know first, right? The moment that event happened, okay, the moment that event happened, at that moment you are passing that information, or that information is received by the target system. That is something real time. Father is waiting outside, okay, outside the labor room, and he gets informed maybe after a minute. Okay, doctor checks everything is fine with the baby, make sure the all the basic stuff is taken care, then the father or the family is informed. That is what, that is near real time. Yes or no? It is real time, right? They didn't hold that news for long, but it took some time for that news to be passed to the father, right? And then there are some relatives of yours, right, whom you start informing maybe after 2 hours, after 3 hours, right? You give a call to them. That is like batch based. Or maybe you generate a WhatsApp status, right? You take some time, and these days a lot of people do that, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people have started putting the status of lot of so uneasy things also. But you generate let's say a status, you generate a collage wherein you're writing my baby is born, this that, right? You're so happy. You took some time, right? And now you think, now I want to broadcast, okay, to many people. And you took some time, and that is like an example of when I'm saying batch based integration, actually batch based integration is little different in a way. Batch based integration means that happens in bulk. I'll give you some examples also, some more examples, but I hope you understand the difference between real time and near real time, right? And generally when we talk from the technical perspective, because we are here to learn technical stuff, right? So when we think from the technical perspective, whenever we are talking about the near real time integrations, right, there will be always some concept of queues or topics involved. There will always be a concept of queues and topics involved. What do I mean by that? So I know some of you may not be familiar what is queue, what is topic, right? I'll tell you what. So now let's say I have so many. Okay, let's say here I told the orders can flow right in parallel. Now let's assume that orders cannot flow in parallel. Okay, this CRM is generating order number one, order number two, and so many orders, right? But we have only one path. We have only one track to pass the information from CRM to ERP, right? There is only one track. So what we'll need to do? The order number three needs to come and sit over here. It needs to wait or not, right? You go to the railway station to book the ticket. Do you find a queue over there?
Sumit, you mean like first come, first serve?
Absolutely. Okay, so you go to barbecue nation to a buffet. So although you get the, you want to, let's say, take a soup, you get almost immediately, but if there is a queue, what might happen? It may not be immediate, but there might be some delay induced because there are people waiting and you do not have a mechanism of passing multiple things at a go, right? Because if we start doing that, it might disturb the whole flow. So in those cases, though it is more or less immediate, but it is not always immediate. So let's say I go to barbecue nation, there's no rush, right? So I go and I get, let's say, ice cream for myself almost immediately, right? But sometimes there is a huge rush, so I might need to stand in a queue. It takes some time. So real time means the moment the data is fired, it is sitting in the target immediately. Near real time means, though many a times it might happen, it may go immediately, but sometimes there might be a delay, and that delay is intentional because I want to maintain the integrity of the systems. I don't want my systems to collapse. Let's think of a scenario. ERP has a capability of handling 100 order at a time. When I say capability means, how is the capability of an application decided? The capability is decided on how much memory it has, right? How much RAM it has, how much uh, this hard disk do we have, right? What are the processors, right? How much threads we have, how many threads we have, right? If you go to a restaurant, how is the capability of a restaurant to deliver is decided, right? How many chefs they have, what is their kitchen size, how much raw material they have, right? And then only we can decide that how many orders they can deliver at a time, right? Similarly, if you try to relate things with the real time, right, things become really easy to understand. So in the ERP world, or not only for ERP, for any application, its capability is decided on the fact that how much memory that application has, how much amount of, when I say memory means, you understand, right? If you purchase a laptop, how will you decide its capability, right? You will see how much RAM it has, right? You will decide how much hard disk it has. You will see what is the processor, right? You will see whether it has any graphic card or not, right? All that information decides the capabilities of a laptop. Similarly, ERP is eventually running on a machine, right? So whatever capabilities a ERP have, I mean, when I say capability means capability to process the request. There are two capabilities. Capabilities means what are the features. I'm not talking about the ERP features. I'm offering about how many requests it can process. Like let's say it is 100, but think about the CRM. Let's say CRM has the capability to accept 10,000 requests at a time. How will this match happen? Do you think it is possible? No, right? If I'll fire all 10,000 requests here, this will collapse, isn't it? If you go to restaurant also, let's say on a New Year day, right? What will happen is there are so many bulk orders, right? Even these days on weekends also, it's like a New Year only. Okay, there are bulk orders. Now there'll be a owner who will be having a table, who will create the coupons, and what he will do is he will send 5 coupons at a time. If he will see, okay, the load is decreased, then he will send another 5 coupons, and that will keep on going, right? If the owner, okay, or the person who is sitting on the billing counter will send all 10,000 coupons at the time, do you think kitchen people will be, or kitchen staff will be able to deliver all 10,000 orders? They'll get confused, right? They'll panic, things will collapse, they will, because they do not have sufficient resources. So the point I'm trying to say is why we need, you might ask me why we need near real-time integrations, is because sometimes we want to establish a mechanism in the integration world that there can be two or more applications which do not have the similar capabilities, but still we want to achieve the integration, right? So we establish a mechanism where we can store things intermittently. For some time we can store things, and whenever this target will free up, we will push few more things, right? And that is possible when you have some mechanism to store information over here, right? And that information can be stored with the help of concept of queues or topics. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying? I'll repeat. What I'm saying is whenever we are integrating, right, it's not only about the data movement. Integration is not only take the data from here, pass the data. You also have to think about these factors where my source is capable of producing the large volume, my target is capable of consuming only less volume, right? Because if it is only about the data movement, we don't need architects in the company. Why do we need architects? Because they need to understand these kind of problem statements, and accordingly they need to come up with a solution. Now they realize this is definitely a problem statement. Now what they will do is in Dell Boomi they will induce some kind of queues. What will this queues do is whenever order is fired from here, they will push it into the queue. Now queue has the capability to first of all store the messages for permanent. It can store messages permanently also, but generally for temporary time we want to store the messages. And it will also ensure the data which comes first is passed first to the ERP, right? So that way what will happen is in this queue I can decide that how many items I want to flush at a time. So let's say I want to flush one item at a time, or I want to flush 100 item at a time. I will pass 100 there, it gets processed. I will pass next 100. I'll pass next 100, right? You go to embassy for your visa, there will be long queues, right? Because there you can think there are 5 or 7 counters, right? Or you go to the toll, right? You go to the highways, there'll be tolls. Why there are tolls? Because these tolls, people are like, let's say there are thousands of vehicles going, right? So they cannot have thousands of tolls, right? Now what can they do is they put a queue so that who came first will process one by one. They are moving, they are not moving completely real time, that is kind of near real time. Any questions, anyone who doesn't understand this? These all are very very important stuff. If you're working in integration world, some, I'm not sure like but if you are already working in integration world, you will realize these things are very very important.
Sumit, I just want to ask that there may be a scenario now when this queue will also get filled, like you are telling that 10,000, but the
Absolutely,
capacity.
absolutely, a very good point, right? And you need to have this kind of thinking. You are right, there may be chances where this queue gets filled. So what typically is done is whenever any integration is kind of developed, we always make sure that we get all these kind of statistics from the applications. Okay, so we will ask them what is the maximum volume you will generate on a given day. Okay, they will say okay, and they might not know, they will, what they will do is they will get the historical data. Okay, they will, so for example, if Flipkart is doing some new integration, what they will maintain the data. On this particular day I got these many orders. At the spike, at the max I got, let's say, 10,000 orders in 1 minute, or 10,000 orders in an hour. So what will these integration people do is they will, or these integration architects, what they will do is they will capture all this data, and accordingly they will design the solution, and accordingly they will designate the capacity to that queue. Now let's say one fine day it happened that it crossed all the past orders limit, and we got a scenario wherein we had huge sales. And that is why you might see, we get to see, Flipkart site collapsed. Okay, Amazon site collapsed, right? That happens because maybe the demand has increased much more than they anticipated. And that is why organizations want to go to the cloud, because okay, they realize now it's, we designed with 10,000, now my demand is going to 1 lakh. If I go to the cloud, I hit 2 3 buttons, my capacity gets increased in no time. In 5 minutes, my capacity might automatically get doubled. That's why organizations are leaving the on-prem stuff and moving to the cloud, because their scaling up is very, very easy. But what kind of scenario you mentioned, that is possible, and that's why you will see, right, some of the times you will see income tax website is down, income tax website is not working, because they designed it for, let's say, capacity where 1 lakh user can use that at a time, but now it's 31st March, which is the last day, right, maybe to to file your return, for example. But 10 lakh people have started using it, so it will not have enough resources, it will collapse. Okay, so in that case, what will happen, to answer your question precisely, when the request will come over here, you will get an error. Your order cannot be accepted, or service, or the website not available, service not available. Those kind of problems you will start experiencing. Guys, anyone who is not following so far? Anyone who feels this is too much of theory and we really don't need this? I mean, you can frankly tell me, because I know there are a lot of freshers in this batch, and I just want to make sure your basics are rock solid. But if someone of you has a different thought process, please do let me know. Okay, moving on. So we'll not. Okay. So now, what do you mean by batch based, right? I didn't talk much about batch based. So batch based example will be NEFT or RTGS. I don't know what exactly it stands for. I don't remember the full form. You can always check on the internet, but that's not related to Boomi. So what is the meaning of batch based? Means the data keeps on piling up at some place, and then you process it at regular intervals, right? So now, if you make an NEFT payment, right, does that payment get credited into the recipient's account immediately?
No.
No, it takes some time, right? What happens is, RBI, Reserve Bank of India, has issued some guidelines. That what are the guidelines to all the banks, that, let's say, I don't know the exact guidelines, but there are 5 times or maybe 10 times a day a batch will run, and that will process all the payments. So what happens is, the details of all the transactions keeps on piling up at certain place, and whenever there are batch time, whenever there is a scheduled time, it will run and it will process the data. So the point I'm trying to make is, batch based integrations are typically scheduled integrations. Again, I'm not saying it is always 100%, but generally these are always scheduled integrations, which means these will be scheduled at some stipulated interval of times. Let's say first batch runs at 9 a.m. IST, second batch runs at 11 a.m. IST. I'll give you some examples also. Another batch runs at 1 p.m. IST, right? So now, we all have a lot of waste getting generated in our home, right? There's a lot of kitchen waste, right? So do you go and throw the kitchen waste? So there are two things which happens whenever a waste is created, right? Maybe you kind of opened a milk packet, right? So you took the milk out of it, then there is a milk packet which is kind of waste which you want to throw, right? Or you had cut some vegetables, now there is some left out, there is another some waste. So what do? You keep on piling up that waste somewhere, right? And in morning, I don't know how it works in different cities. The place where I live, in morning there'll be one government vehicle which comes in, or some people might have some other mechanisms, but there'll be some stipulated interval of time at what when an a guy would come in, or it may be a girl also. Okay, or else you might go yourself also, depends, but you will keep on piling up the waste for the whole day. Okay, bachelors might pile up for the whole week, some people like me might pile up for the whole month, and they will collect everything, and they will dump to the place from where other party or some like government agency would come and pick up that waste. So that is an example of batch based integrations, right? So for example, you go to Big Bazaar, right? Big Bazaar, there are so many outlets all over the country. So they will make so many payments, so many transactions, right? Now, whatever transactions are made throughout the day, they will want to move the information of that whole transaction somewhere into a repository, and where there'll be a team who will analyze those transactions, who will see like which product is doing fantastic, which product is not doing good, in which outlet we have a more demand, right? So, and those kind of reports will go to the CEO or CIO or CTO or CEO of the company, and they will say, okay, I should invest in Hyderabad because in Hyderabad there are more IT people, and then they prefer purchasing from Big Bazaar. Okay, I should reduce, or I should stop my outlet in this area because here we do not have much demand, right? So the point I'm trying to say is batch based integrations would involve the movement of the data in bulk, where they will let the data to pile up, and then they move that bulk or batch or bunch of the data at the time, at a, at a stipulated interval of times, right? So now you have to also understand, whenever somebody is giving you a requirement, you have to understand what is the nature of integration, right? So if I'm saying you the data is generated over here and it has to immediately go to the ERP, then batch is out. Batch is completely out. When the customer is telling me it has to immediately go to the ERP, batch is out of scope. The only things which are possible are real time or near real time. When you ask, they say you that, okay boss, I don't want to put a limit. Okay, my CRM is on cloud and it has the capability to auto tune. Okay, auto tune means if it will get 10,000 orders, it will automatically scale up itself. So in, but my ERP is on prem, it is not scalable. So I will tell, with all these kind of limitations, I don't think I can offer you a complete real-time solution, but I can definitely offer you a non or near real-time integrations, and I will give the pros and cons. I will explain why I can't give you real-time integration. If that person will say, okay, it is very, very rare that I will get 10,000 orders at a time, I want a real-time integration. Okay, if sometimes my order fails, I will ask my customer to process it again, right? In that case, I will say, okay boss, that's fine, I will give you a real time integration. If if the customer says I cannot afford to drop a single order because a loss of an order is a loss of revenue to me, I am fine if my customer takes another, maybe 30 seconds extra or 60 seconds extra to get the order number, but I must not lose the order because that order might go to my competitor, right? Let's say you purchase a product on Flipkart, the same price is there on the Amazon. If the Amazon site is not working, you will not wait for the Amazon site to work, right? You will immediately go to the Flipkart and you will place that order, right? So these kind of questions we need to ask to the business. When I say business, means to the customer, and accordingly we will design our solutions. But you should understand what are the touch points, you should understand what is the nature of integration, you should understand uh, what are this real time, near real time, and batch based integrations. Anyone who doesn't understand all these things? Anyone who has been working in integration but never had clarity about these three things so clearly? Okay, everybody's on mute. So
Hi Sumit, I am working on on-premises integration only.
hmm,
We're integrating tools, but as this much clarity I'm not having before. Thanks to you.
all right. So guys, I have a tendency to go a little slow. I typically do not start with Boomi right away. I have a tendency to make sure that you understand the basics. Some of you might get bored, but believe me, when you start working in real time, you will realize these things are, very, very important. I'll be sharing these notes. Please go through. We'll just take a pause over here. We'll again catch up tomorrow. But make sure these things are pretty clear in your mind. And if these are not, we'll take it up tomorrow and we'll continue from here tomorrow.
Sumit, will you be sharing this
Yes, I'll be sharing this video. Okay,
video
many
also,
many
right?
Yes, many of you, have come via Naveen, right? I mean, so those people who are here because of Naveen shared you the link. You can talk to Naveen and we can work out. Rest of the folks will receive the this stuff from me
Sure,
directly.
Sumit. Thank you.
Okay, Sumit.
All right, guys.